Open your Bibles to Exodus chapter 4, verse 1. Exodus chapter 4, verse 1, Old Testament. This message could apply to anything in your life. But tonight I'm concentrating on giving. Before I get there, in chapter 3, this is where God sends Moses to Egypt. Moses is tending the sheep of Jethro's, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, in the backside of the desert after running away from Egypt. About 40 years have passed since that event. And he's keeping the flock of Jethro. And as you read through chapter 3, this is where the burning bush event happens. And God started communicating to Moses about the mission he was about ready to send him on. And that is to be the leader of the deliverance God was going to provide for the children of Israel. And then you get to chapter 4. It begins. And Moses answered and said, after some going back and forth with God, verse 1 says, And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. For they will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee. Egypt's not going to believe it, and neither but the children of Israel is going to believe it. Even though you said, because it references in chapter 3, I am God, it's still not going to be enough, Lord. The children of Israel won't believe me, and Egypt won't believe me. They're never going to believe this story that all of a sudden I saw a burning bush and it wasn't really burning. Then you started talking to me, and you want me to go and deliver this people from the bondage they're under, the children of Israel, and you want me to convince Pharaoh to let them go. No one's going to believe me. That's what Moses is saying here. So the Lord started doing some miracles to convince Moses that he has it all under control. And these beginning miracles that Moses started to experience was going to be nothing compared to what was going to be coming that would produce the deliverance from Egypt, and no longer the Israelites be under bondage. And the Lord said unto him, What is this in thy hand? And he said, A rod. Now, there's a burning bush, it's not burning. You're speaking. And you're asking me, that's be the first thing that I would ask the Lord. What is in thy hand? Obviously you can see what I'm carrying something in my hand. I'm holding something in my hand. So why are you asking me? Because God's going to make a point here. And Moses said, A rod, or a shepherd's staff, that he would use for various reasons. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. It became a snake. The next line is just funny to me, at least. And Moses fled from before it. The burning bush didn't scare the bejesus out of him. The voice from God didn't scare him off. But now God's telling him, take that staff that's in your hand, cast it on the ground, and turn into a snake, and he runs for cover. Now, do I blame Moses? No, I hate snakes. I do not like snakes. I do not like snakes. I do not like spiders. Everyone around me knows that. This spider could be just about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. To me, it looks like it's a foot in diameter. That's how much I hate spiders. I know there's a phobia for that. I must have it because I hate spiders, and I hate snakes even more. And Moses fled from before it. The amazing thing here is the very next verse, and the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thine hand. First he runs from it, then God's telling him, here, put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. Take this snake by the tail. That's where God would have crossed the line with me. I would have said, you're on your own, Lord. I'll go deliver your people from Egypt, but don't ask me to touch a snake. And the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod, or back to the shepherd staff, in his hand. Now, what's so significant about this? How are you going to get a giving message out of this? No, what I said from the beginning, when I started this message, this can apply to anything in your life that you think you have control of, possession of. Verse 2 says, and the Lord said unto him, what is in thy hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, cast it on the ground. What does that symbolize? By throwing his shepherd's staff on the ground symbolizes him letting go and letting God. See, the reason for that is that a shepherd's staff, it represented Moses' identity. What he's been doing for the last 40 years, give or take a few years. It represented the security as a shepherd, a necessary tool to nudge the livestock or to protect the livestock. It represented the way he made his living. Like I said, it represented the way he protected the flock and probably protected himself also. So by throwing down his staff, letting go of it, is letting us know that so far he's still listening. And he's willing up to this point to let go. Like I said, what represented his identity and security. Now, if you really think about it, that's counterintuitive. For those of us who are control freaks, to a certain extent, I'm guilty of that, and I'm sure just about everyone listening to me, if not all of you, to a certain extent, you're a control freak. We all have that tendency to want to control things in your life, in some cases, other people's lives. It might even go beyond that. You might want to control what God's will is for your life. It's counterintuitive in Moses' case to throw down and let go of his staff. As a shepherd, that's one thing you cling to for the reasons I already gave you. In a sense, he's already putting trust. He is already putting faith in what God is communicating to him, in what God is asking for him to do. See, you can't have faith, or you can have faith, is a better way of saying it. Well, let's put it this way. You can have faith and you can have control. But you cannot have both. If you want God to do something with your life, you cannot have both. You're going to have to take your hands off the staff. Or you're going to have to take the hands off the controls. Now, it's easier to preach than to do. But that's what it says here, between the lines in these verses. So when God told Moses to throw it down, the staff, what was he asking Moses to do? He was asking Moses to let go of who he was at that time and what he had. Now, we can read Moses' story here in the scriptures, but I don't know what you're holding on to. I don't even know who this message is going to really apply to this evening. Only you can be the one to determine that. So I don't know what you're holding on to. Or maybe a better question is, what are you not willing to let go? If you aren't willing to let go, then you don't control whatever is that you're holding on to. Why? Because it controls you. It's that simple. And if you, like Moses here in the scriptures, don't throw it down, your staff will forever remain a staff. It will always be whatever that staff symbolizes in your life right now. A staff. But if you have the courage and it takes courage to have trust in God. At least Moses saw a burning bush and voice talking to him. We have to put our trust in His Word. As we read here in the scriptures, there's no voice talking to me from a burning bush. I don't have no one telling me that throw my pen down and this will become whatever it needs to become, so God could prove his point that he's the one that should be trusted. He has everything under control. We just have to let go and let him control it, and not be the control freaks that we are. But if you have the courage to throw down your whatever staff is in your life, it could become, whatever that is, a lightning rod in God's hands, because he has the power to do what he wants with you. In this case, could be your possessions, the direction of your life. But he has a miraculous power to do the unthinkable. Things that we think that not even possible. Just as Moses thought he couldn't be the one that God really seriously has chosen to deliver the children of Israel. But his staff, and what he proved by the example here that he uses to show Moses that he's in control, demonstrated a miraculous power, not because he threw it, because of the one who changed it. This is not a complicated message. How do you apply it to yourself? Well, what's in your hand? See? God knew what was in his hand. But he asked Moses, "What is in thy hand?" You don't think that's the same question he's been asking all his saints throughout the ages? Now, you might be tempted to say it's just a staff. You might be tempted to think in this kind of way, I can't make much of a difference. Just like Moses. But the one thing I know for sure, you definitely can't. As long as you hang on to what you have and try to control it. What happens when people let go and let God control the circumstance? Let God control the outcome. Let God control what little you have in your mindset to do the great wonders for your benefit, by the way. Not only the here and now, but for eternity and throughout eternity. To be an instrument, a channel, a funnel, whatever you want to call it, an instrument, a weapon of his. Not thinking that you have a say because you want the control, but letting go and let him have the controls and just say, "Here I am, Lord. What will you have me do?" Mind you the story. What if the boy with the 2 fishes in the New Testament decided not to participate and give over the disciples, which gave those 2 fishes to the Lord. He could have said, you know what? These people should have planned ahead. They should have thought it through. I did. I'm just a child, or whatever age he was. And I prepared. Why should I give up my fishes? And what good it will do when you have over 5,000 people plus. I'm just going to keep my stinking fish and just eat it. I'm going to control my circumstance around me, my environment, fulfill my wants and needs, because I deserve it. I planned ahead. But if you put the 2 fish you have in your hands, this would happen to this individual, in God's hands, God fed over 5,000 people. God's arithmetic is kind of funny if you think about it. 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. 5 plus 2 does not equal 7. It equals 5,000. Now, even his disciples, if you really think about it, if you think it through in this story, here in the scriptures, and you go to the New Testament, I don't have time to go there because I don't want to, this is a short message this evening. Even the disciples underestimated Jesus Christ. Well, when supper was done, there were 12 baskets, and there were still leftovers. There was more leftovers than what they originally started with. It's amazing what God's arithmetic can do. But what needed to happen is he had to take control of the situation. But still, someone had to participate, to step up and say, use me, use what I have. What if that little boy held on to the 2 fishes and 5 loaves? What if he just held on to it? Those 2 fishes and 5 loaves would remain exactly 2 fishes and 5 loaves. But by putting them in the hands of Jesus, something miraculous happens. Those 2 fishes and 5 loaves turn into a miraculous feeding of a very large multitude of over 5,000 people. There's been people that says, well, what if my $2 or $5 are going to do to reach the budget? It's not going to make a dent. So I'll just keep it. I'll just keep control of it. I'll find a good reason, a good purpose to spend that $2 or $5. We're control freaks. That's all I'll name this message, control freaks. So back to the question. The age-old question. What is in your hand? Now, you have a choice. God allows us to make choices. Very few throughout history have come and gone that weren't allowed to make choices. I can think of two in the scriptures. Just about everyone else has, including you and me. So the question, what is in your hand? Now you can hang on to it, and you can see what you can do with it. Or, better yet, you can hand it over and see what God can do with it. That's the choice. I repeat, you can hang on to it and see what you can do with it. Or say, I'm sick of being a control freak. Lord, I'm handing it over to you. Let's see what you can do with it. The choice is yours. And this does not just apply to money tonight, even though I've turned it to giving messages. It applies to everything in your life that you are out of control because you think you control it, instead of turning it over to God and see what He can do with it. It could be a circumstance, whatever the circumstance is. It could be a business. It could be a relationship. It could be giving. We all hold that staff in our hands, and we're so unwilling to let go of it because it provides us security. It's the way we make our living. By holding on it so tight, we think we know what our future can be like. I have read many saints throughout my lifetime and their experiences about giving. Some are more wealthy than others, but all of them, to the man or woman, they felt an amazing liberation from the control of things, usually assets, money, wealth, when they said, I'm handing it over to you, God. I want to see what you can do with it. What you can do with it. Like I said, the age-old question is still relevant today. God's still asking, just like He asked Moses, because He's still looking for instruments, individuals, that He could take control of their lives, be in control of their lives, and He could do it by force if He has to. But He's looking for that cheerful willingness of individuals that says to themselves, when they understand, I'd rather you have control of everything that I have, because in your hands, I know, because the scriptures, through the beginning of the book to the end of the book, shows what your miraculous power can do, which I can't. In a sense, we are so small-minded. And the more small-minded we are, the more we seem to want to hang on to that staff tighter, wherever that staff is for you. Well, we know the rest of the story with Moses. God used him and did great wonders through him because he found someone obedient to carry through and be an instrument, a willing servant that handed the controls over to the Lord. Now, Moses didn't get there overnight. It took him 80 years to get to that point. Nevertheless, it's never too late. Well, I have this perfect plan for my life. Well, you started out wrong with that statement, if that's what you said. It needs to be substituted with God has this perfect plan for my life. Now, some of you, he's revealed it to you. Some are still trying to figure it out. All I know is there's nothing more privileged and really nothing more satisfying knowing that God's using me as an instrument to get his word out than what I do here. That's part of the Great Commission. And I'm just like you folks. I don't sit in this $1 million church building, have 45 pastors, have a bunch of people just love me to death because I keep saying the things they want to hear. Nevertheless, I could try to pursue those things and get into them to a certain degree, I'm sure, if that's what I thought the Lord wanted me to do. But that's not what he's wanted me to do. I was tempted to do it many times. You know how easy it would be for me to establish roots somewhere and eventually fill up the place? With enough people that are interested in what I teach, or continue reaching a world that I know needs to hear what's being preached here, that you don't get too many other places, especially as we are to watch and pray for his soon return. The temptation's been there. I have to throw that staff down and let's see what God does with it. And let him lead me. And even if another person never responds again, it's been amazing to see how many people have been touched. You only get to experience a lifetime. But there's messages coming in all day long and all night long from around the world. And one of the most frustrating things to me, for me at least, is to see the lack of participation of people that have sincerely got something from this ministry and have grown by this ministry. and what's preached here, and still refuse to participate in any way or form. Refuse to give even $2 or $5, to go back to that analogy. Now when I start preaching the Last Day series again, here comes the mob, because they want to know what's the next thing I'm teaching about that they know they can't get anywhere else practically. So they come back here, and they'll listen, they'll absorb, they'll soak it in, and still won't participate. We're sitting, and our budget's not that large for where it needs to be. And most of our budget goes towards marketing this message out. When I say marketing, not in the terms the world uses, but getting in places where people can find out we exist and what we teach about. We're still sitting, and we're just about at the end of the month. And that might seem large to people that are just listening for the first time. But our budget's $19,000 a month. It should be 30 and beyond by now. And if it was, we'd be reaching a lot more people. But I'm sitting here at $13,089. Little less than 6,000 to go. Today's the 27th. Am I correct? So we got 3 days. Or we could get this done tonight in the remaining time that we have. The choice is yours. Are you going to hang on to what you have because you think you have a better plan than God? Or are you going to give those those 2 fishes and 5 loaves and see God's miraculous power? In this case, seeing how much more people that we can reach. To hear the true gospel of Jesus Christ being rightly divided. We can't be doing this month in, month out. The last few months, it seems like we get to the end of the month and it's a struggle. It shouldn't be. Some of you need to cast your staff or pocketbook or wallet on the ground and see what God can do with it. Not only what He'll do with it as we reach others, but we can do in your life also. In the liberation that you will feel, for one, in knowing that you don't control that anymore, and you should never have control in the first place. He owns everything. And let God control it now. Some of you need deliverance from your pocketbook. You really do. I have very faithful people that watch me. In this message, if the shoe fits, wear it. But if this message probably doesn't even pertain to them, at least not in the giving sense, maybe some other area in their life that they're struggling with control. So you can apply it there. But there's way too many of you that just do not participate because you don't want to lose control of your pocketbook. you become stagnant in your spiritual growth with that attribute of the fruit of the Spirit. Generous giving. And it's a fruit of the Spirit, attribute of the fruit of the Spirit.